something major has happened at Sage.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Because is it the liquidation of Sage?
Unfortunately, it's not quite that extreme.
Right, okay.
However, have you heard of Vaccine Plus?
No.
Have you heard of Sir Jeremy Farrar?
No, I have not.
Nope, I didn't hear of any of those either this morning, but unfortunately I have now, because as it turns out, a lobby group within SAGE itself, the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, has been pushing for much more stringent action from the government on clamping down on the apparent surge in COVID-based transmission. Surprise, surprise, that's of course not new there. But one of these members was Sir Jeremy Farrar, the director of the Wellcome Trust, who has quit essentially because the government rejected his more stringent approach.
The only member of SAGE I'm aware of was the communist millionaire who lived in a massive mansion and who had a huge estate in Wales, who wanted perpetual lockdowns.
Yes. Well, Sir Jeremy Farrar seems to be very much in line with that kind of idea, as you can probably imagine. But yes, it broke on Sky News today. And it reads as follows. I mean, yes, Sir Jeremy Farrar, remember this, he's quit amidst what he believes to be concerning coronavirus transmission rates in the United Kingdom. So it reads, one of Britain's top scientists has quit over the government's pandemic advisory body, warning the COVID crisis is a long way from over and that the situation in the UK is concerning. Sir Jeremy Farrar, director of the Wellcome Trust, quit at the end of October. Sky News can reveal that Sir Jeremy is advocating for a Vaccine Plus strategy to curb the high levels of transmissions seen in the United Kingdom.
So, hang on a second. Is he saying the vaccines don't work?
Not...
I'm just joking.
Well, given that he cited this as Vaccine Plus, or somebody has cited this as Vaccine Plus, you could get that impression. There's nothing from what's been included in this report that suggests that. But he has... Yeah, apparently his lobby were calling for more mask-wearing, ventilation and continued coronavirus testing to get the nation through what some experts are predicting is going to be another difficult winter. He was instrumental in claiming that we should have locked down much, much sooner before Christmas.
Yep.
And needless to say, he had very similar plans in mind this time around. According to a government spokesperson, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been perfectly clear that the data does not back up the need for Plan B.
Wow.
And needless to say, it doesn't. But it's genuinely amazing how keen some people are to try to keep us locked down forever.
Well, why would we listen to SAGE if there wasn't a pandemic going on?
Yeah.
Where would their influence over society come from if they weren't able to browbeat the government and say, well, look, you need to shut down all of society. So we are the ones who are calling the shots.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, the high levels of COVID at the moment are among children, the people least likely to be affected negatively.
Yeah, and those who have chosen not to be vaccinated.
Yes, because that's their right.
That's their right, of course. Yes, so the vaccines overwhelmingly seem to be working.
Good.
But no, he says nonetheless that the COVID-19 crisis is a long way from over, with the global situation being deeply troubling.
It's weird because I'm not troubled by it at all.
No.
I've had COVID.
No, as with the overwhelming majority of people. But he's still concerned by the rates. He stepped down as a participant for the simple reason that he believes that the government is going in the wrong direction and that they're not listening to SAGE. Throughout this crisis, SAGE has provided vital evidence and independent, expert, transparent advice to support the UK response, often under huge pressure. And he adds, my focus must now be on our work at Wellcome. This includes supporting the international research effort to end the pandemic, ensuring the world is better prepared for inevitable future infectious disease threats, I'm sure you'd like that very much, and making the case so the full potential of science is realised to inform and drive change against all the urgent health threats we face globally.
Oh, I'm shocked that, again, the stars have aligned and the Conservatives have done something based, which is just not bow to pressure.
For now.
For now, yeah.
For now, at the very least. But yes.
But this goes to show that all of this is down to Conservative weakness and not because they are being strong-armed into it. Like, if they just turn around and say no, just that's it. All you have, and that's all you have to do with all of this critical race theory stuff, all of this leftist agenda. All you have to say is just no.
Yeah.
Sorry, the answer is no. Go away. And that's it. They'll go away.
Yeah, I mean, does it not also seem like a little bit of an exaggeration to completely walk away?
Yes, but I'm glad that he has.
I'm glad that he has, but you'd think, given that he is, in effect, the director of a massive health charity, that even if, I don't know, he's part of a group that doesn't have a united vision, he at least has knowledge to offer.
Yeah, but if he's an activist rather
lobbyist.
than a lobbyist, yeah, who is there for moral and ideological purposes, then I'm very glad that he's walked away. Because I mean, I would love if the government have a group of advisors who are just like, well, these are the facts, and that's, you make the decision. You're the elected politician. We're not elected by anyone. That would be lovely, but that's obviously not the case. And so good. I want him gone.
Yeah. But shall we take a look at Sir Jeremy Farrar as in his history? Let's do that. So yes, he is the director of Wellcome, a global charitable foundation which supports science to solve urgent health challenges. All well and good. His whole career is dedicated to protecting and improving global health. As a researcher, he specialised in infectious diseases and has published more than 600 papers. Again, all well and good. He spent 16 years leading the clinical research unit at the Hospital for Tropical Diseases in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, sorry if I mispronounced that, where he made extremely important advances in the advancing understanding of diseases like tuberculosis, malaria, typhoid, dengue and influenza, as well as helping to train scientists from across the Southeast Asia and beyond. He joined Wellcome as a director in 2013. I mean, off of the back of that, you'd think, it's all well and good. Sounds very competent.
Yeah, but also someone who has I view this kind of person as someone essentially who's like, when you're on Twitter and 18 years, not 16,
18 years, correction, yes.
But when you're on Twitter and you accidentally curate your feed to being all one thing, right? Like I do this with Bigfoot videos, right? And so I'm convinced that there's a Bigfoot behind every tree, but that's not really accurate. And so it's because I constantly am in this cultural atmosphere and I'm obsessing over it every day. And this is the problem of these sort of echo chambers. I don't want to say he's an echo chamber, but you know what I mean? It's what is presented in front of your face every day becomes the things that you think about. And if he's constantly thinking about dangerous diseases, well, he's going to be paranoid about that.
Yes, it's going to have a ravifying effect on how you see literally everything else.
Yeah.
Yes. And where that takes him ultimately is actually expressed quite explicitly by Wellcome themselves. If we can get up the next web page here. And they've, needless to say, led to define their movement by their response to COVID-19 being something that will help define the 21st century.
Why would we want that?
That is a good question. Well, they start off describing the nature of the pandemic, for a start, as something that mirrors a snowball effect. They don't use that analogy themselves. They might as well have done. Rather, they describe the pandemic as a crisis which unfolds in 4 circles.
Right.
And this is the actual description that they've given. The innermost circle is the immediate impact of the virus, fear, illness, and death. The second, larger circle describes COVID-19's indirect health effects, such as missed cancer screenings. In the 2014 Ebola outbreak, more people died of malaria in West Africa than of the virus itself. It can take years, blood, etc. If we move on to the third, so I've got some technical difficulties on myself. The third, the social and economic impact of rising joblessness and shrinking economies is larger still. Like every crisis, the pandemic will suffer or amplify existing social fractures and inequalities. This will have political consequences. Some governments may fall as a result of COVID-19.
Governments may fall because what?
Strikes alarm bells, doesn't it?
Well, it seems...
Rings alarm bells.
It seems like an extremely unlikely position.
It does, but it's extremely weird that they've included this, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what are they thinking of?
Yes.
Where are they thinking of?
Perhaps what they have in mind is revealed in the 4th circle, which they describe as the biggest circle, geopolitics. How world powers choose to look after themselves versus the rest of the world, which will define global politics over the coming decades. So
they're essentially seeing COVID as an opportunity and stratagem.
That seems to be the implicit assumption here. Yes.
That's what I'm taking away from it, especially if some governments are going to fall, and this is what we're seeing as well with the climate initiatives as well, isn't it? In COP26, where they're talking about more closely integrating global governments and businesses.
Right.
And so it just seems to be along those lines.
Yes. And they actually proceed to offer a somewhat curious insight into quite how these world powers have looked after themselves compared to the rest of the world.
Right.
And needless to say, they start with the United Kingdom, and they say this. In the UK, there have been increased attacks on minority groups.
Have there?
Well, they haven't even specified the nature of the attack, have they?
No. By who? Like, is there? Is that true? I've not checked the data.
Well, you can cite Diane Abbott. She's made this point multiple times, hasn't she?
Has she? Well, I suppose she probably has.
Yeah, she had. When what's her name? The health minister at the time. I can't remember her name. I'm terrible with parliamentarians' names. She basically said that COVID is disproportionately killing black and ethnic minority people.
Oh yeah.
What was it? Yeah, if you can call her name, it would probably help.
I can't recall her name off the top of my head, but the concern was two things at least. One was the health of these communities. No, three things in fact. The health of these communities, because they often have a greater body mass index.
Kemi Badenoch.
That was it.
Yes.
And the next one was multi-generational people living in houses. So you've got children, parents, grandparents, sometimes great-grandparents. And so, of course, if you're all living in one household, you're confined to the same area and someone gets COVID, well, you're all going to get it, and that affects the elderly. And vaccine aversion. A lot of these communities have a lot of distrust of the government. And so when the government's like, hey, get this vaccine, it will help you, they're like, no, you're going to try and kill me.
Yeah.
And they are also quite prone to conspiracy theories.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Has everything to do with what it seems, culture and occupation.
Yes.
Nothing to do whatsoever about race.
No.
But Welcome have nonetheless tried to present this almost as if it's a systematic, intentional attack against minorities.
Well, the government's just like, look, can you have the vaccine? We want everyone to have the vaccine. What more could they have done?
Yeah. I mean, they do say something that is actually quite, I suppose, based for an NGO, effectively, by saying that Chinese President Xi Jinping has sought to position his country as Africa's friend, promising the continent vaccines as soon as the Chinese citizens get them. Only time will tell if Xi's promise was true altruism, which it certainly isn't, or merely diplomatic power play.
Imagine thinking that anything Xi Jinping could have done would have come from true altruism.
I know. I mean,
Africa, China is not your friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's what supplying coal factories to these nations true altruism?
Well, not just that. There's millions of Chinese people in Africa, basically taking over industries and using the Africans as cheap labor.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think that the Chinese are good friends to Africans.
Yeah,
I mean, what do I know?
But it's impressive that they've actually sought to question it, or at least question the motives. But it's a little bit, yeah. Nonetheless. It's they proceed to wrap up with a very, shall we say, inclusive message,
right?
Which is, I wish it was a little bit less predictable, but nonetheless, the effects of COVID-19 have been and will continue to be devastating. But infectious disease and pandemics are not the only global challenges that we face. We urgently need to address other issues, including climate change, access to clean water. Goodness, what is it?
Antimicrobial resistance.
Antimicrobial resistance and mental health. Like coronavirus, these problems transcend borders. They will not be defeated by insular nationalism, blaming others or drifting into a more polarised world. All this only leaves everyone more vulnerable. Rather, they can be solved by enhancing international cooperation and developing a sense shared of destiny.
How does mental health problems transcend borders?
I've no idea. But I have no doubt that the Charity Foundation will be working very, very closely with Evil Corp. Good Information Inc. in the future.
Yes. George Soros's Truth Factory.
Yes, but it's it does seem like he's throwing his toys out of the pram here.
It does,
because what he ultimately wanted to achieve with COVID through Welcome the government has basically said nah.
Good.
And on your bike, and needless to say,
shocking day where the Conservatives do something good.
Yes.
Thanks for watching this clip from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. We broadcast live on lotuseaters.com at 1 p.m. UK time every weekday. And we also have loads more content that we don't put on YouTube, such as the memes and video comments from our community. Every week, we also have new episodes of our regular series, Contemplations and Epochs. In Contemplations, Josh explores interesting and diverse topics, such as the science behind the need for fathers in the home, or why people believe in ghosts and the paranormal. In Epochs, Bo and I go on, often at length, about various events and periods in history that are particularly fascinating. We've just finished a 5-part mini-series on the 100 Years' War, which I particularly enjoyed right up until the end of it when, spoiler alert, the French won. Alongside our excellent team of in-house writers, we also commission articles from outside contributors, and Silver and Gold tier subscribers have access to an audio recording of each premium article, so you don't have to read it yourself. We interview various contemporary thinkers and entertainers, as well as host the recordings of our live events. We also have a series of premium video content on the site, which we think is particularly worthwhile, or we simply can't put on YouTube because their editorial policies prohibit reasonable discussion on the subject. Personally, I think the deep dives we've been doing into critical theory and critical race theory are most important, as we reveal the origins of intersectionality and the plan that the radical left has for our societies. We are funded almost exclusively by our subscribers, so if you'd like to join us in the work we're doing, head over to lotuseaters.com and we'll see you there.